Welcome to Recently Logged, where this week we're talking about the almost alien Jesus movie.
So for some context there, since I'm sure the audience is like, what are we talking about? Apparently, according to Wikipedia, there was almost going to be a subplot in this movie about one of the engineers, or like the aliens that we supposedly originated from in the movie, going to Earth 2,000 years ago and getting crucified, aka he was gonna be Jesus.
I was about to say, it was like the movie is going to infer that one of the engineers
was Jesus, which is hilarious, and I wish that would have been put to screen. Mr. Ridley Scott said that was a bit too on the nose, so he cut it from the film.
You think? But yes, here we are. We're going to talk about Prometheus. Continuing our Alien series.
Yeah.
We've been doing all of them. We finished the first, main four, and now we're doing the prequels.
All right, but Robbie, I don't see the word alien anywhere on the title of Prometheus.
Well, that's because
not an alien movie.
It's not really an alien movie. It's like a standalone thing, but it's in the Alien universe.
And its sequel is Alien Covenant, so it's really weird.
Well, it wasn't initially tied to it necessarily, but then Alien Covenant.
It was set in the same universe.
Set in the same universe, absolutely.
And then they wanted to do Alien Covenant to continue on with David's character.
Exactly.
Because David is the coolest character.
I was about to say, David's the coolest character ever.
Why wouldn't you want to do another movie about him? But yeah, we're talking about Prometheus.
Yes.
I'm Micah.
And I'm Robbie.
We talk about the movies, specifically the Alien movies, apparently.
Well, yeah.
We gotta keep this going, go to Alien versus Predator,
dude,
and we'll go on for this for 9 years.
Baby. We gotta watch Requiem after that.
No.
But anyway, let's tell the people what they need to know about Prometheus.
Let's.
Hey guys, this is Robbie from the future after we already finished recording the rest of this episode. There's a little spot at the end of this where we realized that we forgot to go over the giveaway details, which if you read the title of the episode, you might have inferred that we're doing a digital giveaway of the movie Prometheus, which we're covering this week. So I'm here to let you know how you can enter and go over all the rules and minutiae details and what have you. So all you have to do to enter is fill out a Google form. It'll record your email, your name, and your Letterboxd account URL. If you have one, you don't have to have a Letterboxd account to enter. So just name and email are the only two required things. Make sure those are correct because they can't be changed after you submit the form. But all you have to do to find that Google form is go to the story for this week's episode, the Prometheus episode, and there will be a link to that in the podcast description wherever you're listening right now. Or if you want to track it down manually, you can go to letterboxd.com/recentlylogged and go to our stories, and there'll be one for Prometheus, which I assume you know what the artwork and everything looks like, but it'll just be labeled Prometheus Giveaway Season 5 Episode 20 on there. So you click on the story, there'll be a link to the Google form that you fill out. You need the 3 fields, email, name, Letterboxd URL, or you actually only need 2, as I said. You fill them out, you submit your form, and you'll be entered to win an HDX digital code for the movie Prometheus. And that can be redeemed through any of Movies Anywhere's different platforms. So Vudu, all the popular ones, really. But we'll email you that code if you win. Winners will be chosen at random. You have to enter before July 14th in order to qualify, and the winner will be contacted on July 18th. So if you want a digital copy of Prometheus, go ahead and enter. You have a couple weeks' time to make sure you get yours in. Please, only 1 entry per person. We don't want it too skewed. I know it's probably going to be a pretty low like entry field. We're not that big of a podcast, so try and keep it fair for everyone. Only one per person. Thank you, and best of luck if you want to win the Prometheus digital code. Remember to go to the form, fill it out. All right, that's pretty much everything. Let's get back to the basic facts of Prometheus.
All right, so again, we're talking about Prometheus, which is a 2012 film. It is rated R. It's 2 hours and 4 minutes. Its little IMDb description is, following clues to the origin of mankind, a team finds a structure on a distant moon, but they soon realize they're not alone.
They soon realize they're in the movie Moonfall, where the moon is a superstructure.
No. The cast features... And there's a couple names in here that I looked up how to pronounce, so I'll give them my best. Noomi Rapace,
which is a cool name, I will say. Noomi.
Swedish.
Yeah.
Very cool. Logan Marshall Green.
Very nice.
Michael Fassbender.
Yeah.
Charlize Theron.
Very nice.
Idris Elba. Guy Pearce. Sean Harris. Raph Spall. And others.
We do like Sean Harris on Recently Logged as our Fallout, our 2 separate Fallout reviews might reveal to you.
But also, I just watched Raph Spall in White Christmas, and he's very good in that. Ooh. So I was like, hey, it's Raph Spall when I saw him again. It is directed by Ridley Scott, and it is written by John Spaihts, Damon Lindelof, based on characters created by Dan O'Bannon.
Dan O'Bannon, baby.
And, elements created by Ronald Shusett.
Very cool.
So that's like, the team.
It's the dream team.
It was nominated for an Oscar for Best VFX.
Very nice.
Which it should have won.
I mean, I haven't seen Life of Pi, so I can't speak to whether or not it should have beaten that, but it does have pretty stellar visual effects.
Oh, it's that guy. How would you say his name?
That guy?
The cinematographer.
Oh, gosh. Dariusz Wolski, I assume?
Maybe. I don't know. He's the guy who did the cinematography for the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I really like a lot of his work.
I was about to say that those have a really nice visual edge to them.
Yeah, no,
that's half the appeal.
I was looking for one other person.
You're looking for another credit, Mike?
Composer. I was looking for the composer.
Yeah,
I love the score for this.
I listened to the whole score earlier today, actually.
Mark Streitenfeld.
Yeah.
Streitenfeld. Love his score for this.
It is really fun. I really enjoy it.
Very, very good. Anybody else you want to mention? Anything else you want to add?
I just think it's important to point out that this is the first alien entry in the franchise that Ridley Scott has directed since the first one.
Yeah,
it's been coming
back to the series.
We've been swapping out directors every movie up to this point. So
he came back for Prometheus and Alien Covenant.
Came back for Prometheus, baby.
He wanted to go at the series again.
Good.
Which I think is neat.
Indeed.
But yeah, let's get into what we actually think about the movie.
Let's do it.
All right, so Robbie, what do you think of the hit 2012 Ridley Scott directed featuring the cow? What do you think of Prometheus?
Was it a hit? No, I didn't think so.
It should have been a hit. It was a very controversial movie. It didn't do very well. A lot of people who like it think it's typically because people were kind of expecting something from it. Its trailers are very much like, oh, look at this new Alien movie. And it's not really a new Alien movie. It's not even really a horror movie.
Yeah.
So it's not really what a lot of people were expecting. So I think a lot of people were disappointed going into it, that it was more like this weird pseudo-religious, I don't know,
it's like this
alien movie.
It's like it doesn't even function as an alien movie. It's just like a niche sci-fi kind of movie.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
So I think a lot of people were disappointed in that. So it didn't do so hot when it first came out.
I was about to say I can't imagine. But yeah, what do I think of Prometheus? I think that it's a lot of fun, but not in like it's a roller coaster ride of a movie, you know. It's a very
slow,
reserved kind of movie.
Yeah. Slow in not a bad way, in my opinion.
Yeah. It really takes its time to like sort of meditate on all of the themes that it brings up, and it's a very introspective movie, which I imagine a lot of people didn't expect from an Alien prequel.
Which apparently they wanted it to be more introspective. They really wanted it to be just like debating like the meaning of life in space, but then they were like, that's not going to be very interesting. People aren't going to want to watch that. So they tried to crank up the horror tension, elements and tension more.
But like as a movie, I really admire like how ambitious it is from a thematic perspective. Like it presents all of these different like characters and like their creation versus them being created and their creators being there, and like
it was complicated.
I was about to say that was a jumble of words, but I think thematically the movie's very cool, and I find it engaging a lot of the time because of that. And the VFX look pretty great. I mean, there's a reason it was nominated. That's one of the reasons I enjoy watching it. Yeah. Oddly enough, the lighting is a bit weird on some of the shots. I actually thought it was green screen for like good portions of the movie, just because the lighting is kind of like flat and weird sometimes. Mostly just the outdoor stuff.
I really like how the outdoor stuff looks.
No, it looks fine. I just thought it was green screen. But that's not like a major criticism. I generally enjoy the movie. I think what it's touching on thematically is pretty cool. I enjoy the cast. I like the score generally. And I really love the decision to make like I was about to say replicant. What do they call them?
The replicants, Remy?
No, not the replicants. It was cool to make Michael Fassbender's character the like main lead of this
just call
movie.
them androids?
Yeah, I think it's just an android. Yeah,
or a robot, or
like something like that.
Hunk of junk. I don't know.
But yeah, I think that is one of the things that I really enjoy about this movie specifically. Like in the context of the Alien franchises, this is the only one where we get a non-human lead, and it brings up a very different, more distanced tone for a lot of it.
Like him and Shaw are co-leads.
Yeah. But, you know, like the movie opens with him, closes with both of them, but, you know.
I was about to say, technically, Shaw's on screen before David.
That's true.
But anyway.
Yes, co-leads. I just think it's interesting. I think it's cool. I think it's a fun movie to watch, but it's not like... I don't think it's perfect. I want it to, like, commit a little more fully to what it's doing sometimes, but yeah. What do you think of
What did you rate
Prometheus?
it? What did you rate it?
I rated it a 4 out of 5.
Nice.
But what do you think of Prometheus?
I really love Prometheus. I always have. Again, we watched Prometheus before we watched any of the other Alien movies, which is kind of goofy.
It's so weird.
But again, it's a pretty standalone film, so it's not like, again, strictly like, oh, this is an Alien movie.
Right. No, watching it outside of the context of the Alien franchise didn't really change that much for me.
No. But one thing that's very interesting is, like, I specifically really, really love sci-fi that has to do, like, kind of like space and extraterrestrial sci-fi that has to do with like religion and God, and like exploring a lot of those concepts in a very interesting way. So like this story is automatically going for something that I really like, as well as tying it into like a really fun way to like Prometheus and using that as kind of like a thematic guide for what they were doing in the movie.
Yeah,
I think it's really, really neat. But with that, it never does go full sunshine. It doesn't let itself be as goofy and weird and like completely contemplative as it could be. And I think they were kind of, honestly, I think this is from what I've read about the production, it was kind of them being just scared that audiences wouldn't really like that, which, I mean, Sunshine didn't do good, so I guess what can you do?
Say it probably wasn't going to do well if they did that.
Yeah, because I think that was more the direction their original script was taking them. But I think like David is such a fascinating character, and the work that they put into him, and Shaw especially is really, really fun foil to that.
Yeah.
And the way that they engage with each other and the way they kind of play off of each other thematically throughout the movie is just one of the coolest dynamics I've ever seen in a sci-fi. And David in general is one of my favorite characters, especially in a sci-fi like this. He's just so fun. Michael Fassbender is giving a crazy good performance, and there's some really, really great characterization for him. I also really enjoy a lot of the more kind of superfluous stuff, like a lot of the action and the aliens and like a lot of the gore and stuff. A lot of it does feel kind of just slapped on. And like especially a couple characters' deaths and everything, you're just like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, I feel like half the crew didn't need to be here for the movie to work, but you know, whatever.
So it definitely feels like it wasn't quite what it could be. It feels like it's holding back quite a bit, but I still really love what we did get, and it looks gorgeous, and I really love the cast. And I just really like the atmosphere and the vibe of being in the movie. It has a very sleek, very, again, kind of, what's a good word for it? Kind of held back, but in like a good way a lot of times.
Like
not
minimal?
like, not minimal, but like this kind of, I can't even describe
understated
it.
Like I don't know.
Like
I don't know what you're
the sleekness that kind of carries over everything, that seems very simple and subtle, that gives it a very tangible sense of like space. Like, actual physical space for me. And I know a lot of that comes to probably a lot of the production design and everything, but I just think it's really neat.
I was about to say production design and lens choice are going to be your big two factors there. And it's a pretty well shot movie. I can't complain.
But yeah, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 because I really like it. This is one of the few things in a long time on the podcast that I have rated higher than Robbie.
Yeah, even if I was handing out half stars, I don't think I would give it a 4.5. I think a 4 is a solid rating for it.
Yeah, it's fair enough. I mean, it's a hesitant 4.5. It's definitely leaning towards a 4, but I just really like Prometheus, and I always have. So.
That's fair. Yeah. But I guess now we should ask a question.
Oh, is that what we should do? Is that what we do?
A wider discussion.
I thought we were just cutting the podcast here. It's like a 15-minute little blurb. We're just like, there's our quick little thoughts on Prometheus. Bye.
It was good. Goodbye.
No further discussion.
Exactly.
But yeah, let's. Do you have a good opening question for us?
I feel like I did, and now I've lost it. Did you have something you wanted to discuss? Like,
I guess one of the interesting things that could go into first is this is kind of a big question to start us off.
Okay.
But what do you think of a lot of its like religious themes, a lot of its Christian themes, and everything like that, and the way it handles, like even the myth of Prometheus? And kind of its relationship between creator and creation.
Well, that in my mind is like the big reason Prometheus works for me.
That's why I said it's kind of a big one. That's like the core of the movie.
Yeah. But what do I think of?
Yeah. How do you think it handles it with like Shaw and David and like just in some more detail? What do you think of it?
Yeah. I think like just generally the story dynamic of having. Like, I don't know if the listeners of this have seen the TED Talk opening thing for Prometheus, but it's a really good opener and like establishes a lot of thematic framework for Prometheus.
Yeah, if you have the Blu-ray and you've seen it probably once before, because I wouldn't inherently suggest it for a first watch because it's just kind of.
I might.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, go watch it's branded as an actual TED Talk, but it's by Wayland.
Yeah.
The guy who started the Wayland Corporation, a very well-known thing from Alien. But he gives a very, very good like thematic setup for the whole movie.
I was about to say, in the TED Talk, it's like 7 minutes long. He talks about the myth of Prometheus and how technology has like made humans gods, essentially. Like what responsibilities do they have in wielding all of this power that they've accumulated through technology? So I think it's really interesting that like we have the scientists and their creation, but they're seeking out the creators, and you get a lot of, again, David is a really interesting character because you get like this kind of mirrored dynamic of him already being with his creators and realizing that he has no purpose, essentially.
Yeah, that his creators made him just because they could.
Just because they could, exactly. And I think that, like, undertone of having David be there essentially as the co-lead, and then having the human characters being like, well, we don't get any defined answers.
Yeah, I was about to say Shaw is kind of set up as Prometheus in the story,
exactly.
Thematically, who's trying to seek answers about their creation, and she gets punished for it.
Yeah, I was about to say, a lot of the horror stuff is generally read as like divine punishment for trying to rise to the level of a god, you know?
Yeah, it's very interesting too, I think, thematically, the way they play with it. The fact that, like, you know, Wayland and all of these characters think of themselves as being equal to gods, think of themselves as being able to come up to these creators and to have just a conversation with them.
Exactly. They're like, we deserve answers.
Wayland thinks he can go up and demand his life to be extended.
It's like, we deserve eternal life.
Yeah, they're coming to, and yet, like, they have all of this, and they think that, like, they're equal. They've created David. They've created the androids. They've created their own life form, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
So they think of themselves as gods, and yet all they can do is, like, go and try and find answers from something else.
Exactly.
That's their entire purpose in the movie, is like that's what they're striving for.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very interesting thematic thing, because a lot of the ego of a lot of the characters is what leads David to kind of act against them.
Exactly.
They're constantly berating him in these kind of backhanded ways about the fact that he is not human and doesn't have a soul, and, like, all of these things.
Off topic note, well, like, on topic, but not about the themes that we're talking about. Wayland in the TED Talk is, like, just a normal adult man. And, like, I assume he was cast in that role because of that. And then, like, we never see him in that age range in the actual movie. We only see him in his old man makeup.
Right. I think there has to have been, like, more even outside of that TED Talk. 'Cause there's no way that TED Talk, I can't think that was ever intended to be, like, incorporated into the film.
I think it would make a really good cold open.
It would make a good cold open, but they have, like, 3 cold opens in the movie.
Yeah, that's true.
So I feel like, I don't know, like, I feel like there had to have been even more footage that they were thinking of having a
because they cast this guy as Wayland for a reason.
But in the actual movie, he's in old man makeup the entire thing, because he's not that old.
And it doesn't look that great.
That's, like, the worst VFX thing in the entire movie. Like, all of the aliens and the engineers, they look, like, seamless and practically photorealistic. Yeah. And then you have, like, Guy Pearce in the worst old man makeup ever.
I just thought it was funny. But yeah, no, I think those themes, and, like, I think generally has some interesting stuff to say about them. Like,
yeah, no, I think I was going to mention...
It's the most compelling part
I was going to mention also, and it kind of plays into what Alien Covenant gets into as well.
I really, I can't wait to see that movie.
But, like, the drive of even these creations, even David, who thinks that he is kind of pointless because he knows his creators and they didn't intend. Even he is fascinated with the idea of creating his own life form.
Exactly.
So it's kind of this chain that you can follow through all of these different creators and creations and how they engage with each other and the feeling and the purpose to create new life.
Exactly, yeah.
And kind of the horrors that can lead to, being, like, feeling so driven to figure out who your creator is and to create your own thing at the same time.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, because, again, the one guy scientist who's, like, the co-lead.
Isn't it Charlie?
Yeah, I think his name's Charlie. In one of the deleted opening scenes of the movie, he's like, they ask him why he's going on the mission. He's like, to disprove all organized religion on Earth. Like, that's his stated reason for going on the mission.
Which you see that dynamic kind of play out between even Charlie and Shaw, even though they're like, you know, in a relationship together, because Shaw believes, like, and, like, not Christianity inherently, but
not necessarily,
she clearly holds some form of faith,
some idea,
and believes the engineers to be divine creatures.
Exactly.
So it gives even an interesting dynamic between them, and the fact that she believes and still has faith in these creatures, and that is another interesting thing for the fact that she herself can't get pregnant. She's infertile in the movie, and again, there's some really, really good ideas that they dig into in the writing wise. Like the fact that she gets pregnant with the alien is so cool.
Oh man, that leads to some really neat stuff.
Like that is the best. Like that is like, especially out of the tension scene, the little like C-section scene is so good.
Oh my goodness, man.
That's
like of people I know, that's like the scene they remember from the movie.
I was about to say, and it plays into more of like the ideas of kind of, I read it like described as kind of like the horrors of creation.
Yeah.
Or rather like the creation of our own horrors.
Yeah, no, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, that's the thing. There's so many like cool elements of this movie that like keep me reading into everything.
Yeah,
and that's
there's
like
so much
the whole
symbolism
reason this
throughout
works.
the entire movie. And clearly a ton of thought put into it. Even just like Shaw, David, and Charlie, which, you know, again, the rest of the crew is kind of meh.
You know, yeah, whatever.
But like Shaw, David, Charlie, Wayland, even like
I was
all
about to say,
the four of them have such well written and interestingly defined characterizations around the themes that they're going for.
Yeah.
That like it could have just been the four of them.
Right. Yeah, no, it makes the movie just like endlessly interesting to me. And that like, because it's kind of paced and structured very strangely, and it doesn't always have a great flow to it.
Yeah.
But like I'm always engaged with what it's doing at the very least.
Yeah, because even if it's not progressing the plot in a very interesting way, because the plot is kind of goofily small and simple, like really not much happens in the entire thing.
You could explain the whole thing pretty quick.
Yeah, like literally. It's crazy how simple the entire plot is for this to be a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
But almost every scene or so, unless it's just some off scene for tension with the crew, is introducing some thematic idea that plays into all of that. Because typically most scenes outside of the ones that feel kind of throwaway are, have like Wayland or Shaw or David or Charlie all interacting with each other, or even other crewmates, to kind of explore these ideas in almost every scene that they're in, which really makes it engaging for you to have all of this time to sit with, and a lot of beautiful imagery and symbolism to pair along with it as you get kind of presented with a fun mystery that unfolds.
Yeah, it's still so strange to me just how like almost meditative so much of this movie is. Again, Sunshine I think is actually a really good comparison, which we did a whole episode on Sunshine.
Sunshine is doing what this movie is doing better, unfortunately. Yeah. But man, like, Sunshine's so good.
Sunshine manages its tensions along, like, as it's like
it feels a lot more justified.
Yeah, as its physical stakes raise, its thematic stakes raise along with it, which is a lot more compelling.
Yeah, no.
Than the stuff in this.
In general, the quote-unquote horror elements of Sunshine feel a lot more justified in general than a lot of what they were going for, because I was actually going to mention that as one of my complaints for Prometheus. Is one of my least favorite moments, and I feel like it's kind of embarrassing for the movie, is the fact that they felt compelled at the very end to show you kind of a weird pseudo like xenomorph at the end. Yeah. Like it feels really slapped on. Like the way it cuts to it too. It feels like a video game cutscene almost. Like just something about the editing after like it ends. Well, yeah, like it's like a solid end. Yeah. And then they do like the flashing lights in the room. It really reminds me of a video game cutscene or something in its editing.
I mean, to be fair, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I liked the imagery of like he like the one alien very much invokes the face hugger, and then it forms with the engineer to create.
Because you get like the squid thing, which a lot of the alien stuff in this is more inspired by sea life than any of the other alien movies. So you get like the squid thing, and then it like grows into the big starfish face hugger thing.
Yeah, and then that combines with the DNA of the engineer to create like a kind of almost xenomorph, which is cool. Like it's a cool idea, but it feels kind of slapped on to the end of the film. Yeah.
Because like we end on this very like almost solemn note, because like everyone just died,
and it's just David and Shaw.
Yeah, David and Shaw, and they're like we have to keep looking.
Yeah, we have to keep looking for more answers.
Kind of like walk off into the distance. Kind of.
I was about to say they end the film having lost everything and found no answers.
Right. And then we're like, oh, but wouldn't it be dope if the starfish thing was like giving birth to a xenomorph?
Yeah, and again, like the imagery is there, and
like it makes sense, but it just feels very out of place for where it is.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that's always fascinated me, and I've always like, it's like this mystery that plays into my mind, and because like the xenomorph in Covenant, as far as I know, I haven't seen Covenant yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen
but
Covenant.
I know the plot of it and everything. Like David specifically engineers like the xenomorph that we know. He goes out of his way to continuously craft down to get the xenomorph that we know.
Yeah,
it's like
the one like in the first.
He's trying to make the perfect life form. So like it's really interesting to me. Like not even bad or good inherently, but interesting that we get that mural in the one room that has like a xenomorph and an alien queen on it.
Right.
And I'm always like, that's so interesting. Like, what is that? I want to know.
Yeah.
And I think it's small touches. Like, I don't have anything to add with that. It's just small touches like that in the movie really give it a weird sense of like, because it doesn't to me personally. I don't know, maybe somebody watches that and thinks, wow, like a cheap alien reference or something. But for me personally, it gives it a really interesting sense of like weird like history. Like it really makes me feel like there's more, like a lot more, even before the events of Prometheus. You could do like a prequel to Prometheus.
Yeah, no, it's strange because like the canon of the Alien series is very touch and go.
Yeah, it's very loose.
It's a very loose kind of story because like the xenomorph changes so drastically over all of the movies.
Yeah, I was about to say the xenomorph genetically adapts to so many different things throughout the different movies depending on what it like face hugs
wildly
with.
Different. Yeah, each different movie. So like I don't know, somehow the references, if you can call them that, just the world building and design of Prometheus, when it references something that's more familiar, it doesn't feel cheap like you think it might.
Again, it's just specifically, I just wanted to mention that mural specifically always like, I'm just like, what is that about?
Right.
Because it literally looks exactly like a late series Alien.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think it's cool. I think it's something.
I was about to say, from what I remember, it almost looks like kind of the muscly aliens that we get in Aliens.
Yeah. Though it's a little bit more spiny, kind of like thin and spiny, like the Alien Covenant aliens.
I haven't seen what the xenomorph looks like in Alien Covenant.
He's a lot thinner.
Very slender.
Very slender.
Very nice. I can't wait to see Alien Covenant, dude. It looks awesome.
But yeah, you know, and I think the Alien series in general is, and I know this is kind of an off thing from Prometheus, but I think Prometheus is kind of a good example of what the Alien series can do. I was thinking of even something like Alien Isolation, the video game.
The video game
is a really like the world that they crafted and the world building, especially that this movie brings to it. Because most other things I've seen after Prometheus kind of play off of a lot of the ideas that Prometheus brought to the Alien series.
Interesting, yeah.
Like even Alien Isolation and everything gets into a lot of thematic things that more play into Prometheus's ideas than a lot of the ones presented in Alien. So it's very, like, I think this movie is super cool and adds a really, really fun layer for me personally, who really loves the Alien universe.
Well, I know a lot of people, and I've never like looked into it, but what you're describing kind of reminds me of like Knights of the Old Republic for something like that for Star Wars.
Yeah, it is. Knights of the Old Republic is a cool as heck game.
That's kind of the vibe.
Like the coolest thing Star Wars ever put out, and it's like it's like reminiscent of a thing that Star Wars could have been.
Exactly. But like that's kind of the vibe I get from Prometheus, where it's expounding upon a lot of the themes that were kind of there in the other movies, like what created the xenomorph, like why is it like the perfect creation, quote unquote. Like we hear that a lot throughout the series. So like Prometheus feels like the perfect thing to expound on all of the things that like the other movies have kind of brushed over.
Yeah, and it's very interesting too, thinking about Prometheus's relationship with kind of the other Alien movies, is like the central theme throughout the Alien movies that kind of gets drawn on a lot is like either like capitalism specifically, and like women's treatment in sexual assault and things like that. Like a lot of that kind of ties together all into a big bundle. But the way like women are treated in the workforce, the way capitalism leads to those things, a lot of sexual dynamics in workplaces and among crew members, like that's a very big thematic draw and tie-in throughout the entire series.
Yeah, it's a good through line for especially the first 4 movies.
Ripley is like very clearly like your strong female character who brings the kind of thematic tie around to all of the movies.
Exactly, yeah.
Even Resurrection.
Oh my god. Resurrection is a very strange movie.
But this movie does not have really many themes. In fact, it plays with them in such a different way.
Yeah,
it still uses women as kind of a central starting point, as kind of this theme of creation in this one.
I was about to say, instead of them being like something that's being oppressed by either like some social dynamic or capitalism or something, they're a like thing that can create. They're essentially like a god stand-in in this movie.
Yeah, and that's plays into what makes Shaw such an interesting like co-lead, is putting her in this position in this series, you know, largely about women,
right,
and having her in this one, a movie all about creation, not be able to conceive life.
Yeah, exactly.
And that kind of drives her character throughout the movie to need to pursue what created her, since she feels inept to create herself.
Exactly, yeah. No, Shaw is a really interesting character. I really like her. There's an introduction again on the Blu-ray for this movie, where she does like this kind of like, not interview, but
I remember
it's like
that.
a tape that she sends to Wayland over and over again, trying to get him to fund the expedition. And it expounds on her character in a really interesting way.
Yeah, dude, I would definitely suggest any of the special features for Prometheus.
Yeah.
It really adds an interesting layer to the movie.
Yeah, it's highlighting stuff that is there, like, already in the movie. Like, it's not introducing anything radically new, but it helps put it into words and, like, focus in a lot of the stuff that's in the movie already.
Yeah. But that was a long time kind of touching on. I mean, that's kind of like the central thing that makes the movie work. The central thing that's really good about the movie is that. But I wanted to also mention and talk about what are your thoughts on like the crew and like all of that stuff, kind of the quote unquote weaker elements of the movie.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about like the horror stuff specifically, which we've touched on a little bit already. But the crew, I don't know. I really don't know how I feel about them, because like to a degree I get why they're there, because like you need to staff it with somebody. Like, it's an expedition, they're like exploring a new planet, there's like a geologist, there's a bodyguard kind of guy, like, you know, there's a crew.
Yeah, it's a scientific team.
Yeah, there's a crew, but like I can't really feel like the movie's gonna shift that much for me if they just disappear.
Well, again, you know? if you look at it again, comparing it to Sunshine, a much better movie. Every crew member brings something really important thematically to the questions that they're asking, and it's much more focused because of what the movie is trying to do. Because I don't think Prometheus is supposed to be focusing so much on the crew dynamic, but Sunshine is very focused on the crew dynamic.
Yeah, it's like the whole movie.
It really helps it. Plus, they have, I think, even a smaller crew than the Prometheus crew. It really helps, like, bring each character has something to add to the thematic elements.
Exactly.
And even when they start dying, it adds something to the thematic elements.
Yeah.
All of them have like something really compelling that they're going for, and the ones that don't die off pretty quickly.
I was about to say, they all have separate goals and ambitions and beliefs, and it drives them to do what they need to do in the story.
In Prometheus, you have the captain, whose Idris Elba would be in, like, Christmas. Yeah.
He's Southern in this movie, Micah, for some reason.
You have the two pilots, and they bet on things. That's the characterization we know about them. You have Vickers, who is there, and she's got weird stuff with Waylon.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about her, actually, because, like, she's one of the only crew members that feels like you need her to be there for the story to work.
But why? Like I get what you mean by you feel like you need her there, but I feel like she's just kind of there at the same time.
Yeah, because like she's like Waylon's daughter?
Yeah, I think she's Waylon's daughter.
Yeah, but it's, I don't know.
They don't expound on that in any way. They kind of throw it in. I think that's kind of another one of the embarrassing parts when she's like mid-conversation and they pause and she's like, Father. Like it's some kind of reveal that means anything to us when she just doesn't have much characterization other than being kind of a stuck-up, unbelieving crew member who doesn't like everyone else.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, her characterization throughout the whole movie, which I thought they were, like, when I was first watching it, I thought they were gonna, like, reveal that, like, she had some secret ulterior motive or something, but she was just being mean for really most of the movie. It's very strange.
But if you keep going with the crew, it's the same thing though. You have Sean Harris, who's like he's the geologist, and he's like he howls.
He's the wild card.
He's the wild card, but he sure doesn't do much.
Yeah.
And then you have what's his face, who's like with him at the one point, and his whole thing is that he doesn't do anything. He does nothing the entire movie, and then he dies.
And
then there's like a couple other crew members too, I think, who literally I don't even think we know what their job is.
Like in the briefing, I think you're right there. I think there are like 2 or 3 more.
So like compare that to Sunshine, where like literally, like I said, like every single crew member not only has a job, but a goal, family, thematic reasons for being there. And even if they have like similar thematic reasons, they start to thin the herd of the crew pretty fast.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's interesting. I don't know. Prometheus's crew is like the most, I think, embarrassing thing about the whole movie.
Yeah, they just don't have, again, outside of Shaw, Charlie, David, and Waylon, like half of them just don't feel like they have any purpose of being there, which really is like unfortunate.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Because they're kind of a fun crew, or at least they could be if they were explored more.
Yeah, and they take up like, I don't know, a good 20-30 minutes of the movie, something like that.
It's a fun cast and they work well together.
Right.
But man, they just didn't write anything for them to do. Half of them don't even understand why they're there.
Yeah.
And the other half don't care.
Exactly, right? And it makes the like sacrifice thing at the end feel a lot cheaper too. That's actually one of my least favorite like points of the movie, is the like weird like we're gonna drive into the ship at the end so that they can't get off the planet.
I hate that moment.
It's the weirdest.
It does like this dramatic beat as like 3 characters you don't really know very well and don't really care about that much crash into a ship, and you're like, wow, we could have just not had the ship fly away,
right?
And that would have, like, it just doesn't mean anything because they don't mean anything to you.
It feels very just tacked on to like raise the physical stakes when it didn't really need to be there.
I was about to say, and you have a lot of moments like that. Like really one that bothers me a bunch. I don't mind like the stuff that happens with Charlie. I think the stuff that happens with Charlie is good, but I think
that's actually really cool.
Like the him getting burned and stuff is a really good moment, and also plays into the Prometheus myth and everything. But like if you take Sean Harris's character for no reason in the middle of the movie, after it's been pretty much established that he's dead, like for zero reason,
my gosh, I forgot about that.
They're like, oh, somebody's at the door.
There's somebody outside.
And they're like, oh, what's that? And like, it's like weird body bent Sean Harris.
Dude, I thought it was so funny. They're like, there's someone at the door, and they open it, and he's standing like perfectly at where it's gonna
right. And
it's so funny. I don't know why.
And like they're like, oh, and then he like there's this really weirdly paced, tensioned action scene where he kills like
not great
4 crew members who we don't know, and then just gets killed, and you're like, wow, what was that all about?
Dude, this was my second time watching it, and I had honestly forgotten that even happened. Like, it came around to it. I'm like, oh, Yeah, right.
And it's some of like the most brutal kills in the movie. He like punches somebody's face in through his mask.
This movie is really like brutal and bloody and gory, like
sometimes.
Yeah.
And then the other times it's not, because it's not a movie that has a necessity to be. Again, that's one thing that some people complained about with Sunshine, is that it feels like the horror elements are kind of tacked on at the end. But I mean, we disagreed in the episode. I still disagree. I feel like it very naturally builds up to that. And this movie, it actually feels like they're just kind of tacked on.
Yeah, there's not really like, because like obviously you have the big engineer guy like kind of tearing people up at the end, and that makes sense.
Yeah, that works really well.
Yeah, and that's not super bloody either. Like,
no, he like punches Wayland.
Yeah, he like
whacks people.
Wayland was like a butterfly landing on him away from being dead anyway.
Right. Yeah. No. Like the most graphic thing he does is like rip David's spine out, which they only put in because he's an android.
It's just still pretty cool, I think.
But yeah, no, like it's really
the only violence that felt like it like should have been there, and it's not like super brutal.
Even then, I understand the use of like the two of them, the two like geologist and Sean Harris or whatever. No, Sean Harris is the geologist. The other guy. The guy who doesn't do anything.
The guy who doesn't do anything.
Their deaths and like that scene, I think is fine. I think it's pretty decent. It's not great.
They just give too much time to it.
They give too much time to it, but it's fine. And it would have been fine as a start off for like the very first like alien.
Things are going crazy.
Okay, like alien goop gets on worm becomes thing attacks human then alien goop, and you have another, like that's kind of how the xenomorph stuff works. It's species combines with other species, and then you get like new species.
I totally missed the earthworm thing the first time. I just thought they were like weird eel aliens.
No, they're the little earthworms, right?
Yeah, that was just me being dumb, because like I thought the worms were just there to show that there was like water.
Yeah, but so like that's fine. But again, for zero reason did we need Sean Harris's character to come back and like randomly kill off people. There's weird. Absolutely zero reason for it.
Yeah, the movie just kind of comes to a halt to have a kind of stilted action sequence.
I was about to say none of our main characters are involved in it.
Yeah, it's weird.
Nobody who dies is important or ever talked about. Like, I don't even think they're like nobody mourns any of the deaths of any of the characters in this movie. It's crazy. Like most of the other alien movies, they're like
you get Shaw.
They're like, oh man, Shaw and Charlie is an important character. But I'm saying like,
you're saying
all
like
of the other alien movies, like they're like, oh man, we're dropping like flies. Oh, the crew members, like, because they have actual relationships, and this one, like, crew members start dropping and nobody acknowledges it.
They're right. Yeah, no, it's very strange. I actually kept saying that like when the movie was over. I'm like, what a strange movie.
Yeah, it really is.
Because it is so strange in like so many ways. But really, like a lot of the stuff we're talking about, like we've been talking about, like plot points like Sean Harris's character coming back. It's stuff like that keeps me from loving this totally.
Yeah.
Because there's just enough of those kind of moments that like it just feels cheapened and kind of watered down.
Yeah,
a lot of the time.
I kind of wish we could see the original script that they wrote, because from what I understand, like they had the guy who wrote it, like the guy who wrote the screenplay originally, like had a script, and they all read it and they liked it, but they didn't think it would have an audience. Like they just didn't think it would work.
Which is such a shame, because I think they could have made something really special and made like a really groundbreaking sci-fi film,
like Sunshine. But again, Sunshine didn't do well. Nobody watched Sunshine. People didn't like Sunshine, so I guess don't make Sunshine. Make Sunshine. It's amazing.
It's an amazing film. But yeah, no, I don't know. I have a lot of mixed feelings about Prometheus, but again, I have a general like respect and love for what it's attempting to do. And I really enjoy just watching it.
I was about to say, I love being in the movie. I love its characters. I love like just the movie. I love the performances. I love how it looks. I think it looks really, really great. I never have any moments where I'm like, oh, this looks weird.
The lighting is just like weirdly flat in some spots for me, and the lenses, like in the actual movement and lens choice of the camera in this is not dynamic enough that like if you lose the lighting dynamics, like it kind of loses a whole layer of texture.
Well,
to me.
I don't know.
And it just becomes kind of a flat movie.
It's a very like sweepingly filmed movie. It's filmed very away from the characters. Like it's a very from any emotion.
Like I said, it's a very
characters.
standoffish movie, and that's one of the things I like about it. But it just makes it feel kind of, I don't know, not like a TV movie. It's something adjacent to that.
I disagree. Though. I strongly disagree.
I don't know. It lacks weight for some of its sequences, and I don't know what's missing for it.
Thematic tension, Ravi.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, no, all of the elements that I don't like, which I talked about most of them just now, don't take away from the viewing enough for me. Like I said, it's a very hesitant 4.5, but I just really love the movie. I really
it's
do.
A cool movie,
I enjoy the movie. I think it's really, really cool. The score is incredible. I genuinely really love the score and the use of the score. I think paired with its cinematography, it gives it this like such a feel of that grand thing you're watching. Even in the small moments, you get this kind of sweeping score with these beautifully like wide shot like scenes.
I was about to say you get a lot of strings and a lot of like choirs and choral stuff, which is really it's a fun like sonic identity for
it adds this really fun element that you're like that kind of plays into the themes of what it's looking at in the movie in general, where what you're watching with like creation is beautiful and harsh.
Yeah, I was about to say, the further away you get, the nicer everything looks.
Yeah, it's this, again, when they sweep over the planet in the very first shots, or the moon, rather, it's just this gorgeous, like, National Geographic-esque looking
it's
stuff.
It's so funny, yeah.
It's beautiful. And it really adds to this like sweepingness, and I think even like again like the score and the cinematography, in my opinion, play really well into what it's going for thematically.
Yeah, most of the time they do. That's what I'm saying. But like it's just a few instances where I'm like, this is just kind of, it just feels stilted somehow.
Yeah, but
yeah,
I don't know. I really love what it's doing, but Sunshine's better.
Last thing I wanted to bring up, Micah. What is your interpretation of like the movie's opening, like with the engineer like drinking the weird like death pomegranate and falling off the waterfall?
What do you mean by my interpretation?
Well, I just wanted to know what you thought, like that as like an opener for the movie, and like why you would want to start with something like that. Just because we didn't mention, because we kept talking about how like we wished the movie opened with more information.
Well, again, one of the biggest thematic things going into this movie, I think it's actually a direct quote from the movie, is to create you must first destroy. So you open on this like
I think it's super awesome,
sterile, hyper quote unquote beautiful, like he's extremely muscular looking thing, almost grotesquely perfect looking,
again, mostly makeup, which is very cool.
Yeah, right. There's actually a really fun behind the scenes clip of the guy just being like, hey. It's really like, it's so goofy because he looks like 90% of what he is makeup.
Yeah, from what I understand, they just kind of smoothed it over with CG for some of it.
And again, I think the CG really helps in that instance because it gives him that kind of grotesquely too perfect look. And you have him breaking himself down to create this this genetic mutation that goes on to create, like, from what I think is implied, it's what goes on to create their little DNA destroying virus,
which I did not realize until like late, like until after we finished our second viewing, because I was like, wait, what's the point of the opening? Because I thought it was just like one of the engineers like dying, like I thought that's what it was, but I didn't realize that he was like
he's taking the
serving
first step
as a creator
to make the first iteration of what would lead to the alien.
Exactly. I thought it was super cool. I didn't realize. That's on me.
I was about to say, again, they get into it more in Alien Covenant. I know this as well, but they delve into the engineers a bit more in Alien Covenant.
Cool.
But the fact that like the engineers keep using, and again, this is something from Alien Covenant, but they keep using different civilizations that they've created to like, and they use those to be consumed by another creation of theirs to try and keep making a better and a better. And it's implied that that's what they were going to do with Earth, is that they were going to use it to create essentially their xenomorph. And it's very
cool.
interesting the way all of that stuff. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a cool. I think
awesome,
Alien Covenant, Prometheus, as a combination, are just really cool ideas for movies.
If you looked me dead in the eyes and said Alien prequel, I would like immediately kind of like withdraw, but this is actually probably like the best case scenario.
Yeah, I was about to say, as weird as it sounds, I'm kind of glad I watched this before I watched the other Alien movies, because then I'd bring in the baggage of like, oh, this is an Alien prequel, and I'd be comparing it to all the other Alien movies, and again, it's not really an Alien movie, and it's very different, and I'd probably be disappointed, and I probably wouldn't like it as much, just like most people who went and saw it when it came out.
No, seeing this before watching Alien is very, I don't know, I think it was a good like palate cleanser almost for what baggage I would take into Alien, you know? But yeah,
that's all really I have to comment.
It's a cool movie. Yeah, that's all I really have to say.
It's a very neat movie. Again, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5.
Gave it a 4 out of 5. It's a solid film.
Yeah, you should go check it out.
Yeah, if you appreciate thematically rich sci-fi movies, Prometheus is for you.
Yeah, especially this kind of extraterrestrial religious theming sci-fi, which is my cup of tea. Totally.
It's so cool, man.
Maybe give Prometheus another chance.
Even if you don't like Alien.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Or if you haven't seen Alien, I would suggest Prometheus.
Yeah, and if you watched Prometheus when it came out or something, and we're like, oh, that's not an Alien movie, and we're like, oh, it's bad. Maybe give it another chance and try not thinking of it as an Alien movie. Think of it as something like Sunshine. But
engage
who knows?
With it on its own terms.
Maybe you hate Sunshine and you think we're terrible people with terrible opinions.
Tastes, yeah.
But I don't know, maybe give it another chance. Who knows? You could love it.
Yeah.
Crazier things have happened.
But yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the other stuff that we watched over the past week.
Let's do so. All right, so for those of you who are new to the podcast or never listened to this far, we do this little fun segment at the end called the What We Watched segment, where we talk about all the things we've watched in between episodes. We give our brief thoughts and brief ratings and try to just have fun, talk about stuff that's been cool.
Yeah. Very smooth intro, Micah.
I can talk. I've been talking so much today.
I'm sorry. Sorry to inconvenience you with Prometheus, Micah.
No, I love doing the podcast. It's
a lot, yeah.
Yeah. All right, we're going to be going from the 20th, which is when we put out the Paprika episode.
Yeah, so June 20th.
June 20th. Can't believe we're almost in July.
That's July,
crazy.
Baby.
Sorry, my YouTube subscribers. I've not done much work on the After Sun video at all. But what are we starting with, Robbie?
On June 20th, I watched Airplane for the very first time. The 1980 comedy.
That's so quirky.
It was so zany, Micah.
Zany.
It was so crazy. I don't know. I mentioned in my review that it kind of reminds me of like The Simpsons in a lot of ways, like the way they go about writing a lot of their bits and everything. Like it's a very, I don't know, just a very Simpsons kind of movie. Like a lot of the gags are very simplistic and like almost classical, which I don't know, that might just be because, it's an 80s comedy, but it's a lot of fun. Not everything worked for me. Like, obviously, I think just about anyone would tell you that it's a bit racist for, like, I don't know, a good, like, maybe 20% of the movie is just racist. So I didn't really, like, enjoy that very much, but, like...
He's like, I loved the racism.
I loved it. We needed more. No.
Finally, a comedy that's willing to...
Finally. You couldn't make Airplane today, let me tell you. No. But, like... it's spread out enough and they keep like all of the jokes. It's very fast paced, kind of like a Simpsons episode would be, where like by the time you're like finishing laughing at one of the jokes, there's already another one like going on. That's kind of the pace it keeps up throughout the whole movie. So like even if there's one that doesn't land for me, I can like immediately bounce back with like a fun like visual gag or a fun play on words or something, you know. There's a lot of really good background stuff in Airplane is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. I'd gladly watch it again. I miss fundamentally absurd comedies, you know, like I want them to make a big comeback in you know, big Hollywood movies nowadays. That's what we need. We need the abolishment of like big action blockbusters except for James Cameron so that we can have zany comedies again.
Or we need to end the reign of superhero stuff.
Exactly. It's already going down.
It's on the decline, but it's what will rise to take its place. You want comedies to rise and take its place.
Big budget insane comedies like Airplane but less racist. But yeah, I gave it a 4 out of 5. I think it's solid. The drinking problem gag is like so funny. I don't know if you've seen that before.
I have not.
The whole thing is he's like, oh,
you can explain the gag.
It's very simple. It's very simple. It's like ever since you got your drinking problem, and then it like shows him trying to take a drink of something, and he just like pours it down his face.
That's pretty good.
And it comes up like 3 separate times in the movie. It's so funny. But yeah, Airplane, good time. I give it a 4 out of 5.
Good time, Ruby?
Not good time. I mean, I was a good time, but it wasn't the movie good time.
Then, going on to the 21st, we together watched the Martin Scorsese film New York, New York.
New York, New York. I almost said New York.
I've been trying to watch through. I'm pretty close to finishing all of Scorsese's narrative feature-length films.
Whoa.
So I've been watching through some of the more obscure ones.
Like New York, New York.
I got my hands on New York, New York.
Yep.
And it sure deserves to be one of the more obscure ones.
Mm-hmm. It is not the strongest I've seen from him, to say the least.
No, it's got a lot of problems. We could do a whole episode of New York, New York.
Oh,
there's
easily,
a lot to talk about with it.
It's a very long movie.
But at the end of the day, it's just kind of too annoying and boring for half of the movie, and like really just thematically not fun to watch.
Right.
And then like sometimes
it's not a pleasant movie.
Sometimes there are like the coolest things you've ever seen happening, but it's very just back and forth between those two things for 3 hours with not much plot.
Yeah, not
which
great.
Isn't the greatest viewing experience. I probably won't ever watch it again.
I kind of hope that I won't watch it again. Maybe I'll watch like the final sequence of it again someday.
Yeah, the final 30 minutes of this film are like amazing.
They're really good, yeah.
But man, the first bit is good, but like the entire middle is kind of genuinely hard to get through. It's
like super like slow and like super annoying.
Literally I put at the top of my review, I put, during a scene in this movie that lasts over 5 minutes, it's just people trying to dryly figure out what their drink order is, as Robert De Niro looks like he'd rather be anywhere else than he emotionally abuses his wife while music plays, and that's 90% of the movie.
Yeah,
literally, like the scene, seriously, if you watch this movie, most of the dialogue scenes between different characters are like these weird,
petty arguments,
back and forth petty arguments.
Yeah,
and like there's a lot of thematic stuff going into the movie about emotional abuse and everything. Mm-hmm. So like, and it does something neat with that. By the end,
it makes sense on an intellectual level, but it is not fun to watch.
I was about to say, but so much of the movie are these weird, tiny back and forth arguments that go nowhere and have no plot driving them, and it's so hard to get through all of it.
Yeah, I was about to say, there's like no narrative drive for like over half of the movie, and it's just a pain to sit through.
Yeah, I give it,
for all of its technical proficiency and like
beautiful.
A good cast, it's a beautiful and everything.
Film, and it's really well acted, and the music is great.
Just not for me, man.
Yeah, I give it a 3 out of 5.
I also gave it a 3 out of 5. I was not too fond of it, but it's not like bad, you know.
Then also on the 21st, I rewatched while half falling asleep Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone.
Philosopher's Stone, baby.
My dad really likes the Harry Potter movies, and we wanted to watch a movie together since it was just me and him at the house. So we turned it on, and I was up way too late because I had to teach the next morning. But it was fun, and I still think there's something really, really, really good about the movies. We talked about them all on the podcast.
Didn't Peter Jackson do the first one?
No, Chris Columbus.
Oh, Chris Columbus. Right. Why did I think Peter Jackson?
Peter Jackson didn't do any of them.
Chris Columbus. Because I caught the last like 20 minutes of that while you were watching it.
Yeah,
and it really
Harry Potter isn't
got a great feel.
I was going to say Harry Potter isn't something I love engaging with that much anymore for reasons.
Yeah.
But like genuinely, these movies as like movies of the time and everything are really something special.
Yeah,
and they still have such a magic about them. So what can you do?
Yeah.
Also, I just could not stop thinking about how poorly designed Quidditch was this time around. It always bothers me every time I watch any of these movies that they talk about Quidditch. But I was just like, oh my gosh, it's so dumb. But anyway, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
Fair.
And then on the 22nd, I watched Black Mirror Nosedive.
One of the more well-known episodes of Black Mirror.
Yeah, getting into season 3. They had a bigger budget. They had a movie director. They got Joe Wright to direct it.
Love Joe Wright.
A very weird one. Obviously, it's got a lot of really great cinematic things, but I think its writing is a little weaker than it could have been. It's not quite as biting as it could be. And really, again, it kind of unfairly makes me think of Parasite, which is just leagues better. So what can you do? But I still really enjoyed it, and it's really fun and has a pretty good emotional core. So I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Nice. And then we went out to the theater.
Yeah.
We went out to the theater on the 22nd, and we watched Asteroid City. We bought our tickets like a week before or something.
Well, they were selling them, right?
Yeah.
They were giving them out.
Absolutely.
Like
but yeah,
candy.
Asteroid City, man.
New Wes Anderson movie.
Our first Wes Anderson movie in a theater.
Crazy. But arguably, and again, I don't want to just go off and say it because of recency bias and everything, but arguably my favorite Wes Anderson movie I've seen. I wrote a pretty darn long review about it, and I may do a video on it sometime. But man, it had me crying in the club, and I really enjoyed every minute of being in the theater with it. I think what it's doing thematically is really brilliant. I think it's beautiful, funny, fun to be in, really well acted.
Yeah.
One of his most unique feeling movies. I really loved it.
I was about to say I really enjoyed it too. Obviously, I think it's like thematically a very beautiful movie to like just soak in its entirety. If this was like Wes Anderson's last movie, I would be like I would be sad that he's not making any more, but like I think
it would be like a great, like it would be a good thematic. And
I was about to say it touches on a lot of like the form of his older movies, and like it has like a story within a story, and it feels like almost a critique and examination of how his style has evolved over the years. And it's just, I don't know, it's a really cool movie. You should go watch it in a theater if you can.
Yeah, as well, I mean, there's a ton of different things you can pull from it. It's very clearly a pandemic movie. Has a lot of very big existentialism stuff going on. It's just really cool.
And its existential stuff works emotionally, which is great.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite films of the year so far. I gave it a 5 out of 5.
I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5. It's so good, but I just didn't gel with it totally, like emotionally, which is a shame because like that's one of its big appeals. But I think it worked well enough like on an emotional level for me to appreciate it but not fully connect with it. So that's really the big thing holding me back from giving it a 5. But again, fingers crossed, when I see it again, that'll change.
Get off the stage.
But yeah, 4 out of 5. Asteroid City, one of the best of the year. Go watch it.
Maybe the best of the year. Then on the 23rd, we sat down and I rewatched American Psycho, and Robbie watched it for the first time.
I saw American Psycho for the first time.
It's such a fun movie.
It is just a joy to watch, which feels strange saying it considering like the kind of movie it is. I don't know. It's like almost a black comedy for a lot of it.
It is supposed to be a black comedy.
Yeah, but like I don't know. It's a very interesting movie, and it's something that I had been looking forward to seeing for so long that like I felt like I'd already seen a lot of it, like just secondhand clips and whatnot. But yeah, Christian Bale's great in it. It's got like a really smart and funny screenplay. It's got some great cinematography. It ramps up the tension when it needs to, both like dramatic tension and comedic tension. I don't know. It's a really like technically well directed and well made movie that has a really fun premise and like a nice thematic core that kind of wraps all of its weirdness together in a really nice way.
Yeah, I think it worked.
It's a fun movie.
It worked even better for me on a rewatch. I upped my rating.
I would love to see it
if you recall, I rated it a 4.5 last time. I gave it a 5 this time around because I really think thematically it tied together in such a nice little bow, and I just really have fun with it. Christian Bale's performance here is amazing. The direction's really fun. I think the movie looks great. I think it's just it's a fun film. I would watch this like anytime.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
it's a very film bro selection, but I think for a reason. It's really great.
Yeah. Again, I give it a 5 out of 5.
I also gave it a 5 out of 5. I loved it.
And then on the 24th, I rewatched Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Alas, I was working.
It had been a bit since I'd seen it. This time it was after watching Across the Spider-Verse, which was really cool. And it kind of really adds a little layer to watching this movie after seeing Across the Spider-Verse.
There's so many like tiny setup things that just seem like almost incidental in the first movie.
Right. It's really, really cool. Yeah. I got to see the bagel guy.
Guy.
I did not. Like, that was fun. I was like, look, there he is.
There he is.
But yeah, I gave it a 5 out of 5, which is what I had rated before. It was like my 9th or 10th time logging it. I really love Into the Spider-Verse. But, I mean, again, I love Across the Spider-Verse even more, which is crazy. Then also on the 24th, the 24th, I watched Aaron Brockovich. One of Soderbergh's earlier movies.
You've seen a Soderbergh movie that I haven't watched, Micah.
Boo.
How will I live? I'm the bigger Soderbergh guy.
Are you the bigger Soderbergh guy? This is produced by Danny DeVito, Rebby. This is produced by Danny DeVito.
The Danny DeVito?
Who talked some of the actors into working on the movie. Oh my
goodness, I need to watch Aaron Brockovich right now because it has Danny DeVito and Steven Soderbergh.
But no, it was really fun. It's weirdly enough one of like the least driven feeling Soderbergh movies I've seen, if that makes sense, which I guess might just come from it being an earlier movie. But I think out of like based on a true story kind of movies like this, it does a really good job of being really engaging, a lot due to Julia Roberts' performance, which is like the best thing I've ever seen her in. She won an Oscar for the performance, but she's genuinely really, really fun and like funny and makes the entire movie a lot more engaging than if it was somebody else or like a worse performance.
Yeah.
So that was really fun. I think the way it ties in thematically and tries to say something is fun. It's also really depressing, like all of these movies, especially being the fact that they're like, yeah, this like 20-something billion dollar company paid a couple million and are still operating fine today after horribly ruining tons of people's lives just because they were lazy and didn't want to spend money. Wahoo.
Good times, Micah.
But yeah, it's a fun movie. Julia Roberts' performance especially, there are so many lines that she does in this movie that are just incredible.
Nice.
I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Cool.
Then on the 25th, I watched Black Mirror Playtest. It's a pretty standard episode of Black Mirror. I really liked, I think that's Wyatt Russell, I think is his name. He's really fun in this. He's like a fun, annoying American gamer, and that's a really fun lead.
The portion I saw of this episode was very interesting.
I really like seeing more from Dan Trachtenberg.
I
think is how you say it. He's the guy who directed 10 Cloverfield Lane and Prey.
Yeah, we talked about Prey earlier.
He directed this episode, so that was fun, and you can definitely feel a lot of his direction, but at the same time, like a lot of Black Mirror episodes, it feels like it doesn't really fully have the time or the means to kind of treat its premise with the kind of weight and ability that it needs to.
Yeah.
So it comes off, especially this one being a lot more traditional horror, as being a little bit cheaper and just kind of, you know, it's just a mid-pack kind of thing. It was really fun, but it's not like great. It doesn't have the strongest emotional core. It doesn't have the strongest premise. It's not really that scary. It's just kind of, it's a good Black Mirror episode. I give it a 3.5 out of 5.
There you go.
Then also on the 25th, I watched Boxcar Bertha, another Scorsese film, his second feature-length narrative film.
Yep.
Sure was something. I would not suggest this to watch. It's just kind of... there's some good ideas there. I think there are actually some genuinely really interesting scenes, moments, shots, character beats.
It is still a Martin Scorsese movie.
It's still a Scorsese movie, but on the whole, it really just doesn't work that well. It's messy. It feels so long, despite being one of his shortest movies he's ever made.
Isn't it like 88 minutes or something
it's 88 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
And it feels so long because it's just not that well paced, and it's honestly not that well written. So there are like some ideas there. But on top of that, it feels really weird for Martin Scorsese to do this style of film because it's very much like an exploitation kind of film.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
It doesn't really mesh with his style generally, like from what I've seen of him.
It very much is kind of a Roger Corman film, which he produced the film. So, that is what it is.
That makes a lot more sense, yeah.
But I just didn't really like it, and I definitely won't try and go out of my way to watch it again.
Yeah, I don't even know if I'm going to bother seeing it, honestly.
I gave it a 2.5 out of 5.
Well, tough but fair, Micah.
And then we watched Prometheus.
And that
is all.
We watched it with our dad.
We did. Wish he hadn't seen it before.
He had never seen it.
And he said he said it was good, but he felt like there was something missing.
Yeah.
Which,
It's Prometheus.
But yeah, that's what we got. Next week we'll come back with something.
Oh, and we almost forgot to mention it.
Oh man, we need to add a segment. You should You should record a segment about it at the beginning.
I will.
Because man, we just breezed past it. So if you've listened to this far, and we'll add a segment about it at the beginning. But again, we're doing a giveaway.
For Prometheus.
A digital copy of Prometheus. Give some information on how people will enter into that, Remy.
Okay. If you look in the description of this episode, or just go directly to our Letterboxd page, which is at recently logged on Letterboxd, you will find a story entry which has all of like the YouTube link and everything to this episode, for this episode specifically. So if you find our Prometheus story, it'll have the thumbnail and everything. You click on that, and there'll be a Google form link that you can click on. You'll enter some of your contact information so that we can send you the code if you win. And we'll just do a random drawing after, I think 3 weeks is what we've decided on. So yeah, we'll wait that long. You can enter in through our Google form, and you'll receive the digital code for Prometheus to redeem through Vudu or Movies Anywhere, whatever digital platform you use. It should work. But yeah, that is basically it. Just look for the link, go to the story, and then find the Google form link, and you can enter from there.
Yeah. So you guys should have heard that at the beginning of the episode if we did this.
Yeah,
right.
I'll record a separate segment so that you guys will know what I'm talking about.
But that's a reminder in a very complex, hard to follow in an auditory way.
I'm sorry.
How to enter in the
Basically,
giveaway.
You click on a link and then you click on a second link. That's it.
And you guys are gonna go for what, 2 weeks? For our giveaway?
We'll have our episode next week, so you'll have all of that, and then another episode after that, and then our Alien Covenant episode will be the one after that. So it'll be 3 weeks that you'll have to enter.
Aren't we going to announce the winner on the Alien Covenant episode?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's 2 weeks.
So just 2 weeks. I don't know. Basically, enter before our Alien Covenant episode comes out.
We're going to announce a winner, and we're going to give you personally, maybe, a copy of Prometheus.
Honestly, if you're listening to this and that sounds appealing to you, you'll probably have a pretty good chance.
Because I don't know how many people will enter in.
I don't know how the scale is going to be for this.
Think about it. You might be the only one to enter, so you may have an 100% chance of getting a free copy of Prometheus. It'll
basically just be 2 random guys sending you a digital code for Prometheus.
So yeah, go do that. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening, guys. We'll catch you next week with a different movie or something like that.
Wow. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.